Chapter 27. Layla tapped her fingernails on the leather sheath of her sword. Her sword. She laid it out on the bar top in the downwind, after pushing aside a half-dozen dirty mugs and baskets filled with breadcrumbs. The bar had never been this dirty, as far as Layla could remember. The boy hired as help had probably fled town with the others. "The girl's in shock, she is," said the quartermaster behind her, muttering to someone she couldn't see. Shock. That's what they said about her after her father had died. What people had called the numbness which comes with being helpless. It was more than fear. She feared Winston, but she could fight someone like him. But as she sat in the downwind, she felt nothing but a deadening of emotion and a certainty that she would die. The empty streets of Watchful had convinced her. It was as if the vacantness of her home had stretched out over the whole hill. When the captain had told her to stay and fight, she had been ready to leave anyway. But when Inej had said the same thing, it felt different. After her father had died, the Velk, he had come around now and then, never saying much, but being there nonetheless. She even had the strange feeling that the tanner had kept Ollie alive somehow. And now, with Tuck back at home, she felt anchored in place. She had set the dog up with a small fire, food, and water beside him. He had barely stirred. She had searched through her brother's things and found some trousers that he had outgrown years before, but they were too long for her. After some quick work with shears, they fit nicely into her boots. She tailored her working dress next, giving it a quick snipping to become a workable tunic, especially after she wrapped a belt around her midriff. Soon, she would strap the sword's sheath to that belt, and then she would look about as much as a soldier as she ever would, which was not saying much. "Oi, Miss Riker," Ulian called from across the room, his eyes wide behind his spectacles. He dropped the mugs he carried on the table before two sullen-looking farmhands, who also looked dumbly at their own swords. And then he hurried over to her, flushed, covered in light sweat, despite the growing chill inside the tavern. Ulian looked every bit the haggard innkeeper. He pointed at her, his smile wide. "Just who I was hoping to see." Layla leaned onto the bar as Ulian jumped up the steps onto the platform behind the bar, bringing him eye level with her. "Oi, busy?" Layla asked, nodding to the room behind her. About half the table and chairs that usually occupied the bar had been piled up outside to help form the barriers up the road. Brooding men and women occupied the seats that were left, all quiet except for the low mutterings. "Aye," Ulian said, raising bushy eyebrows. "Why, I tell you, Miss Riker, the downwind hasn't seen business like this in all my years as proprietor." "Oh, I've read that war is good for the economy, but this wasn't what I had in mind." Ulian wiped his forehead with a beer-stained towel before turning and filling the first mug he saw from the cake beside him. "I figured most everyone had left." Sorry, wrong character. "I figured most everyone had left. Well, the soldiers stayed course, and they got coins to spend, and..." Ulian paused, looking about, voice growing low. "And they're all feeling rather certain they won't be needing their chits any longer." "Ah," Layla looked back down at the sword. "I only wish some help were about. These legs of mine feel about as wobbly as the seaweed at Port Gibeon. That is to say, very wobbly. But no matter now, you are here." He dropped the filled mug before her, waving for her to stop as she moved toward the money pouch in her pack. "On the house." "No, don't argue. I insist." Layla took the mug, bowing her head in thanks. Ale wasn't what she needed, of course, but she took a long pull anyway. "You're too kind," Layla said, wiping her mouth on her sleeve. "Perhaps," Ulian said with a chuckle, scooping up a discarded mug and all the baskets from around. But I should reveal all my cards now, lest you think too highly of me. Oh, is that your way of saying this mug ain't free? William's cheeks flared red, and he ran a hand through his sweaty white hair. Well, I shouldn't mean that exactly, just that I thought, while you're here, perhaps you could enlighten me some. Well, with all the recent events going on. I don't know anything, Ool. Of course, William said, nodding. Just tell me, is it true? Layla looked up from her sword, eyebrow cocked. Is what true? The princess and your brother, obviously. Has he taken her there? To the wood, I mean. William's spectacles jiggled ever so slightly as he spoke, dancing atop the bridge of his nose. I've heard rumors. No one had said anything to Layla about the trip being a secret, or even indicated that the reasons behind the princess going into the wood weren't common knowledge. And Winston seemed to have plenty awareness, as well as the captain. She shrugged. Hi, it's true. They left this morning before I was up. She's in a bit of a hurry, I guess, Layla said. Layla said nothing of her mother. A hurry? Why is that? Layla waved a hand. The attack? She'd probably rather not get skewered before doing whatever she planned on doing. Ah, I see. William put a finger to his chin and paused. No, actually, I don't see. Why not stay and fight first? Why leave in a hurry and in the dark? Why go into the wood at all? Yes, sorry. William cut her off, waving his hand excitedly. One question at a time, of course. Besides, I think I've pieced much of it together already, yes? Let me ask instead, why did she bring your brother? Why Ollie? Why Ollie? Well, that was a good question, and Layla wasn't sure she knew the answer. After the previous night's talk with her mother and brother, she felt like she had at least a faint understanding of what was going on. At least she understood the wood had a heart of sorts, and she knew that in that place was a being called Star Davna. And that's where Star Davna lived, if lived was the right word. Somehow it all meant the princess could stop Katsaraka from destroying the world or something. I'm not sure, Layla said slowly. I think it's because, well, Ollie knows the place the princess wants to go. He's a guide, is all. And where does the princess want to go? The tree? Tree? No one had mentioned a tree before, and besides, wasn't the wood full of trees? William searched Layla's face, fingers still tapping his chin. No, not the tree then. The void? A barren stretch of ground, yes? With a pillar at its center? Oi, Ollie talked to something like that. William's head bobbed excitedly, and Layla thought she could see his mind whirring about like a spinning top. Ah, yes, they are after her, aren't they? Risky business, that is. I once tried to convince your father that the tree, more formally known as Lignum vitae, was far more potent than Terra vacua. More dangerous, perhaps, but I feel... Hold on. How do you know my father? Layla leaned forward, eyes narrowing. When did William come to Watchful? 5 years ago? 6? Her father had died 11 years ago, well before Ulian had bought the downwind. Ulian fidgeted with his spectacles, eyes suddenly interested in the bar top. Oh, yes, well, perhaps that was something I should have mentioned. What's to mention, Ul? Well, you see... Thunder, loud and deep, rumbled through the tavern. More than noise, the thunder shook the whole tavern. Tankards and plates rattled off tables and clattered onto the floor. A decorative lute above the fireplace shook loose, cracking onto the cobblestones, sending strings twanging free. Everyone stood now, the soldiers in the room unsheathing their swords, the farmhands backing up until they hit the bar top. Layla got to her feet and fumbled with the sword's handle, wanting to remove it, but finding her hand shaking too much. And then it stopped all at once and without warning. Gone as fast as it had come. No one spoke. No one even dared breathe too loud. Only the crackling flames of the fire said anything for a long time. Lips moved in silent prayer, and Layla put a shaky hand over her heart. She meant to pray too, but no words came, only an empty quiet within her. In the end, Ulian broke the silence. That's it then. They're here.